All right, so it's been a while since I posted on YouTube, and I kind of wanted to make my first breakout video on the bobber that I started last year that I want to get finished up. But this is my personal project, and it's getting to a point where things are working out, and I don't find enough videos on YouTube about full breakdowns on tube chassis. You can go search tube chassis or, tube chassis race cars, whatever. And there's lots of information, but not full detail. And that's kind of what I want to go to the extent with on this build. This is a facelift or 05 E46. It was just going to be a roll cage car for like a weekend race car. The body's in good shape. The floors, unfortunately, were worse than I originally thought. So far, as you can see in this corner up here, the sills seem to be in actually pretty good shape. But the plan is, you can see up here, there's little bubbles, but not bad. But we're gonna basically strip the shell. I've already started the roll cage, but I wanna go in depth with how I'm setting this up. So I've got a solid bar that runs all the way across, and then the hoop is actually set on top of that. Now this is all 1 3/4 120 wall DOM. I left the ends open, and I'll show you why. So this is your fuel tank. This is the passenger corner here. And you can see there's a little like drain plug. They're the same on both sides. That was my marking location to start the rally inspired jack point. I'll go over to the other side. All right, so you can see I've got my 1.5 inch DOM pushed through the side skirt, and it's still got movement in there. It's not like so tight that you can't move it around in there, but it's got a nice snug fit. I can take my die grinder and just open up that hole just a little bit so it's a nice clean straight through. But I want it tight for now because we're gonna take the bottom of the roll cage, which is 1 3/4 by 120 wall. So 1.5 inches, where are we here? 1.5 inches fits perfect into the inside of that DOM. So I'm using this spot. I'm gonna drill the passenger side the same way. And those are gonna be my marking locations for the roll cage. I've already had it test fit in here. I know that those holes center to the holes I drilled. The roll cage just touches like the roof and comes down the pillar, but it's just on the backside as this is a 4-door car. All right, so I want to try to be as in-depth and transparent as I possibly can be. That's the driver's side. This is the start of the passenger side. So what I did was I took a standard step bit. This is just a cheap, crappy tire one. It's thin sheet metal, so the max that most of these go, unless you order them otherwise, is 1 3/8. So that is drilled out to 1 3/8. From there, I've got my hole saw. This is the 1/4 inch bit that comes with the hole saw. I'm gonna use a standard 1/4 inch bit because it gets me about 3/4 of an inch further from the edge of the hole saw. And then that way, let's see if I can get this in here one-handed. All right, not something easy to do one-handed, but all right, so I got this in, 1 3/8 hole saw. If you use a regular 1/4 inch drill bit, like I said, it's a bit longer. So it'll bottom out right about here before it's hitting that center wall, and allows you to keep a nice straight line through and gives you the center to this hole without having to try to, put a drill, like just a standard drill bit in there and guess what center is. So this keeps everything nice and in line, doing it this way. Just kind of a quick tip for anybody that's trying to attempt building a tube chassis, and more specifically, rally-inspired stands. So I'll give you some quick rundown here. I've got the rally-inspired stands in place. They're awesome. They On the bubble, it shows slightly off to the driver's side, which is because of my floor. Even though this wood stand helps, it is still off center. But this bottom bar, this top bar, and both support stands on either side all have the same reading. I'm 8 degrees roughly tilted back. So if you look there, it's nice and parallel with the B pillar. And then from there, what I have here are some cheater bars. I've made 15 degree, 30 degree, 45, 60, and 90 degrees. And what I do is I mark my start bend, and then I mark, I have my finish bend. This is 1 inch from each point, so I know how many inches each corner takes. And then what I do is I actually drill a hole in the bottom, and it's hard to tell, it'll focus, but that's threaded. So that way, as you can see here on the 30 degree, I insert an inch and a half. Insert an inch and a half in there, and then I can put another piece of straight. This helps me minimize waste. So I can actually combine multiple angles. That's how I made my roll cage. That's actually, I was able to do it in one shot, and it fits like super tight, nice and snug to the roof. And then when the doors are closed, it fits nice and snug to the doors. So I was able to do it in one shot. It's worth the time making some good cheater bars. Mark out as much as you possibly can. Every single one, I've made doubles of all of them except for the 15 degree. And that way I can combine multiple angles. I can add straight sections in between, and I don't have waste this way. So I'm able to make precise cuts, precise angles, all in one shot, and not have to spend, you know, a couple $100 in waste. And most of this stuff was made out of scrap anyway. So the plan from here, this top bar is going to support the horizontals that are going to go back to the trunk. So I'm going to get this 30 degree bent into 1.75 120 wall. I'm going to cut my straight piece of tubing. That landing point is the furthest point for the rear subframe. So it's going to have a stock subframe. I'll get back there and I'll show you. All right, and all I've done in here, this is, like I said, this is 1 3/4 120 wall. This is 1/4 inch. This is a 2 inch circle, and that gives me, when it's centered on there, that gives me plenty of welding space around it. And then I have the center drilled out already. I think this is, oh, don't hold me to this. I think it's 15/16. Anyways, it fits a M12 bolt, which is the stock bolt that goes in here. So I was gonna drill it out, and I'm glad I didn't, because now I have this bolt for the subframe removed, and I was able to put it in from the top into the standard threading on the chassis, and that's going to hold that down right where it's supposed to be. Tack that into place, and then I'll have perfect measurement. Cope this, tack it to it, and then I can actually technically weld it fully in here, or weld it 3/4 of the way, and then when I pull the cage, I'll be able to get the bottoms. So I don't have to try to guess or, you know, do something funky to make sure that that's in the right location. I got to knock out the rest of this firewall here and do the same to this side, and then I'll be able to build my cross support. So when I get these tacked on there, there's going to be another bar that connects the two of them, and then from there I'll be able to have bars welded on. And I think what I'm going to do is actually, they'll be smaller, they'll be 1.5 inches, because from here back it's just going to be points to hold the body on. I'm going to actually retain the stock crash bar mounts, so I'll be cutting out this support, and then this bar is going to have a slight bend where it's going to come down and then bend in this way, and I'll be able to build a 1/4 inch plate to catch these three, and basically the body will be sandwiched between 2 1/4-inch plates. 1 1/4-inch plate will be the removable rear tube section, or the crushable rear tube section, and then the other plate on the other side will be the bash bar under the bumper. So, and that will be removable. It'll have a jack point, all that kind of fun stuff. This will have, like I said, 2 1.5-inch DOM sections, and then I'll be able to put the fuel cell in here. This will all be cut out. After I get this all squared and tacked in place, the rest of this floor can come out. After that, we can start, I think I'm gonna do cantilever, which I've been reading and doing all the research I possibly can. We'll have a hoop that basically comes out across and catches the other leg, and I'll be able to run all the cantilever stuff on that bar. That'll be 1 3/4 120 wall. And then from there, I don't know if you'll be able to see, we'll be able to catch the top corner of the roll cage and bring a support right down to the front side of this tube. And then we can exit in from corner to corner. Now for the structural part, so this leg will be 1 3/4 120 wall. And I think for the triangulated section, I'll do the same thing, 1 3/4 120 wall. But for the X bracing, it'll either be 1.5 inch 120 or 1 3/4 090. And then, like I said, this rear section will be 1.5 inch 120. Yeah, I think I'm gonna do 1.5 inch 120 because it's gonna be removable. I'm gonna have a little 1 3/4 piece coming off here, and then you'll be able to insert the whole rear section to it. So if we get into where there's an accident or a rear end or hits the wall or whatever, you'll be able to replace this on the fly. But that way the structural side of it is all 1 3/4 120, and then anything that's crushable will be 1.5 inch or a thinner wall. You forget how annoying shooting YouTube video is when you're constantly talking and redoing scenes and, deleting. And anyways, I've done some calculating before I make commitment to the plan I had, which was simply bolt this into the stock location from the top. So that way I know this is perfectly level with the chassis, and I know that it's in the exact stock location to bolt up the subframe. Currently, the subframe is still in this car. I have all 3 bolts holding it in. I've just taken this one out because in theory, I can do this side and then put the stock bolt up through the bottom. This will hold its stock location. I could actually run this, I could actually probably run a shorter bolt from the top down because there was some leftover thread. So I could run a bolt in from the top. It'll hold this in a spot and it'll keep the subframe where it's supposed to be. And then basically do the same thing on this side that I did over here. And then I know everything is perfectly square where it's supposed to be. And then I can set up my support through here. The problem is with saving you having to do the math, from where the subframe sits on the bottom of the chassis to the top of this chassis where I have this circle mounted is 1 3/4 inch plus or minus a 1/16, because I measured the threading in there, and in doing it this way, I'm actually bringing the subframe up 1 3/4 inches. So this is good or bad depending how you look at it. I'm going to be able to lower the car for free basically. So I'll almost get 2 inches of lowering and still be able to have full travel. And I say that because this is all going to be gone. So I'm not going to have to worry about hitting wheel well and all the normal stuff you would with having a lowered car and full suspension. We're going to do flares and cut out the wheel wells. That's easy. That's not a problem. I just want to make sure that in doing this, you got to make sure that this location, so 1 3/4 inch, is the same as the front two when you go to mount those. Otherwise, your subframe is going to sit on an angle. So I have this marked, and like I said, I'm within a 16th, which within a 16th is very minimal error room. So I got the measurements for the first rear support. Just showing you no fancy tools. This is a, I think this one's actually from Harbor Freight. And then I have this one set up for 1.5 inches usually. It's just on a vise here. This is a Princess Auto, so a Canadian equivalent of Harbor Freight. But nothing fancy as far as equipment goes. Even with like my fab table's extra small. I mean, it's expensive to get a big one. These big monster 1.75 inch 120 walls I'm bending by hand and getting within 0.5 degrees of the end result. So I mean, I've learned my bender over the years, making bash bars and stuff. This roll cage is going to be fully TIG welded. This is the Everlast 250 EX, I believe. And man, it's been an awesome machine. I use the MIG a lot less these days, but it's always good to have something, you know, quick in the shop if you got to throw a tack on. But gonna get this thing coped and cleaned up, and we'll run a test fit in the rear. Going to do a 30-degree cut on the tops of the tubes that are gonna connect the rear subframe. So the circle piece would sit on here. I found 45 degrees was kind of too much of an angle, and anything under 20 just kind of looked almost like you just did it with an angle grinder to kind of give it a look. So 30 degrees is the number here. Cut this, and then I'll be able to rotate, cut my other 30, and then measure from there, take it over to the chop saw and get a nice straight edge cut on it. Okay, I'm gonna cut this video short here because my phone's starting to run out of memory. So cut the tube, here's 30 degrees. It's secured down to the rearmost subframe hole. It's in there tight. I finished notching both sides. You can see nice snug fit. We're nice and level there, front to back. We're squared up here. Also, nice edges to weld on, super tight. Best advice I can give you guys. I had cut this one exactly where I needed it, and I planned ahead. I left that one a little bit longer, about by a 1/4 inch. 1/4 inch longer than what I needed even with the notch in it. And I just dialed it in with the angle grinder, taking my time. But we're gonna cut it there. Made some good progress. I won't bore you with building the second one because it's gonna be the exact same. But next video we'll pick up with the support, and I've got more metal on the way, and we'll pull in the triangulated supports here and maybe even get the harness bar done here with the X's. Thanks for watching, guys.